Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Teeter Talks. My guest is Tyler Champagne. Sounds fancy, eh? And you probably know who he is, even if you don't recognize the name. His handle on Instagram, TikTok is Heated Seats. And he puts out the funniest dad parent content that you have seen. He and I had a great time chatting all things parenting, using comedy to get a message across and to find silver linings in tough conversations. He just put out an amazing series on postpartum, from the perspective of moms, but also helping dads during those tough moments too. It's just fantastic. And I encourage you to go check out his stuff and enjoy this conversation with Tyler Champagne. Hey, Tyler.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I woke up at 5:30 this morning,
Ooh,
not because of my kids. I actually did it on purpose, which
why would you do that?
I'll pay for. I went to the gym, so
Oh, okay.
it was sort of to start the day. I didn't like, I wasn't like journaling or something like that. I was working out so that I can eat what I want later.
This is, we think very much alike. It's very much a method to my madness to exercise to be able to support my eating habits.
Yeah, it's a defense mechanism against nachos, tacos,
Yes.
shawarma, chicken wings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Although I did read this about you. You don't have a sweet tooth. You said you'd rather eat a burrito than a piece of cake. Is this true?
Yeah, I don't know what I just like. I would rather have like a second dinner than have some. Like occasionally I have a couple of vices when it comes to sweetness. A good cheesecake, a good New York cheesecake, I can't resist.
You would not get me with cheesecake, but keep going.
And and then like maybe a brownie or a fresh chocolate chip cookie with ice cream can kind of get me. But I don't typically I very rarely have dessert at restaurants. I'd rather eat to the point of nearly falling asleep and then struggle to get home.
Solid diabetic coma post dinner.
Exactly.
I get it. Yeah, I like both. I'm very much in this like salty sweet thing. I want both of them at the same time. Or like when I have one, I want the other. It's like this. Yeah. But well, good for you because I do like cake. I also do like burritos. So
Yeah.
nonetheless. Well, listen, I'm so glad you made it onto Teeter Talks. You and I met a few months ago, actually, through our mutual friend, Ariana, and she had you on your podcast. But I will say, I knew who you were before she introduced us because your very funny, very viral videos have landed in my social feeds on many occasions. And so when I met you, I recognized you right away. So let's talk about this. You have a Instagram account called Heated Seats.
That's correct.
And, but your content today is very like dad, parent, very fun. You're very funny, by the way, which we'll talk about. But you didn't originally launch that account to be about dad stuff. So let's go back a little bit. So you launched this account, and what was the original intention?
Yeah, it's been over 5 years now, actually. Okay. It was like 2 weeks before the COVID shutdown. I had been planning for a couple of months about wanting to, blend my background in comedy with, the automotive business, which is what the business I'm in. So I was like, maybe I can do something that's sort of funny about cars. And that's where the whole account Heated Seats came from, because I eventually wanted to have a podcast called Heated Seats, sort of a double entendre, play on words of, seats that are heated, but also like car related conversations. So that's where I came up with the name for that, and then had someone design a logo for me, and I started doing car content that would have been February of 2020.
Okay.
So right before the COVID shutdown, I did that for a couple of years, and I was in car groups. I had sports cars at the time, and then my wife and I got pregnant. Well, she got pregnant. Let's not, the word us is in the word uterus, but let's be honest, it's just her. So
it was just her. Yes.
Yeah. So she got pregnant, and then I decided that, having a Corvette was not the most practical family vehicle. So I sold that, and then I just naturally started making dad related content. I did both, sort of car content and parenting content for about a year. And then the parenting content just took off at one point. And then I just sort of focused my energy on that, because I wasn't in that car world as much anymore. Right. I didn't have a sports car. I wasn't going to car meets. I wasn't involved in that world anymore. So I just naturally sort of started making content about what was happening in my daily life.
So basically your children hijacked your Heated Seats car content page.
Oh yeah, in the most brutal fashion possible. Yeah. They completely took it over, and I've dabbled with the idea of changing the name to something, but every time I do a poll, people are like, no, I've followed you for 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Some people are like, where's the name come from? And I explain it every couple of
Yeah.
months on my stories or whatever. But people were the majority of people were like, just leave it. It's kind of, it's interesting. It's neat. I refer to my friends. I went to a Leaf game once. This is probably a year and a half ago. And walking in I was with 3 or 4 buddies, and someone just screamed "heated seats" at me as they were walking by. To this day, I don't know who it was. I didn't see their face, and my buddies are like, "What was that?" I was like, "I don't know, man. It happens.
That's just who I am.
It happens sometimes."
Yeah.
So yeah, probably never going to change it.
No, I mean, you've got some brand equity there now, and it's a good story behind it. And ultimately, your videos are everywhere, and I remember seeing them a lot, but I couldn't tell you what your name was or what your handle was. I just remember seeing your face because you have a very specific kind of format to your videos. You're very funny, very memorable, but it wasn't like I didn't necessarily connect the two, but I was very familiar with your brand and what you did. So that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have almost 350,000 followers. Your views, do you know how many views your content has gotten? You must know these stats.
In total, I don't even know, probably 70, 80 million.
Oh my
views,
goodness.
maybe approaching 100. I'm not even sure, to be honest. I mean, I've had, every month I have a few videos that go over 1 million. So you figure I've been doing it at a viral level for a few years. It's got to be somewhere in that range, because I also have over 200,000 on TikTok as well, and then those videos occasionally do well too. So I don't even know the exact stats, but it's got to be somewhere up there.
And it's really funny too, because you create these videos, you create content very easy to digest, but very much from like a dad's perspective. So you're basically sharing your journey as a dad. Where's your wife in all this? I don't feel like I've ever seen her face. So where is she? Does she think you're funny? Does she enjoy this little journey that you're on?
Most of the time, yes, she does think I'm funny. But she just doesn't want to be in the content. She doesn't have any desire to be seen publicly. When I get, if her and I are together and I get recognized in public, she like digs a hole in the ground and climbs into it. But it's, she's funny and beautiful. So like, I kind of wish, there's a little tiny part of me that wishes that she would be in it. But for now I just have to, dress up as her and my kids. I play my entire family. Yeah.
Yes. You are very busy playing a lot of characters in your videos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you. And so we kind of danced around it, but you did go to school for comedy.
Yes, that's correct.
How did you, were you always funny as a kid and that was your destiny? Was there a backup plan? Like, what did your parents say when you're like, I'm going to go to school for comedy? Walk us through that one.
Well, yeah, I was actually in school for something else. I was in school for sport management, actually, at Brock University. I did that for 2 years out of a 4-year program. In my second year, my dad passed away, actually, suddenly. So my parents were divorced, but it was something where, I had to sort of reconsider what I was doing. I didn't love the program I was in. It wasn't kind of what I thought it was. And then I was like, maybe what if I just moved to Toronto and start doing comedy? And my mom was like, well, it'd be nice if you could go to school for it, have some sort of structured life. I'm not just going to send you to a big city to start doing comedy. So I went to the Humber Comedy Writing and Performance program, which is a 2-year Bachelor of Arts program. I graduated with honors. I don't want to brag, but
congratulations.
Thank you. I don't know what that actually means, but it was a fantastic program. It felt like a 2-year long summer camp. I mean, there was a lot of work with it, but it was just so fun that it didn't feel like school. I mean, there was
probably fun for you. That may be some people's worst nightmare and maybe not feel like a summer camp. So obviously you had found something that really fit you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was writing classes, stand-up classes, acting classes, sketch classes. There was a clowning class where it was just physical comedy. So you weren't allowed to talk at all. It was just about using your body to, throwback to like the old school stuff, like Three Stooges and those types of things where you're using your body to create comedy. So there were some classes that I liked more than others. One of the classes was stand-up, which I liked. That was one of the main reasons I went there. But there were people there who had no desire to get on stage. They just wanted to be, in the writing or the directing or the acting side of it, but everyone had to do all of it to sort of step out of your comfort zone and make yourself uncomfortable. And thankfully, that to me would have been the greatest nightmare, is like, if you didn't want to do stand-up and you didn't want to get on stage, having to do that. Like, you had to go on stage, I think it was a minimum of like once a month at Yuck Yucks in downtown Toronto. So like, there's a show with like 180 people in the audience, and you had to
get on stage
5 minutes, like once a month, basically. It was a requirement as part of the course.
I love this story because, number one, I think people struggle with going to school for things that they're more passionate about. You know what I mean? Like, not knowing what the end goal was. Like, maybe, yes, you want to get into comedy, but great advice from your mom to say, you know what, sure, if you want to do this, maybe get some sort of backing in it, get some of the fundamentals, but kind of following your passions and reconsidering. Like, this was a big pivot, I'm sure, for you in your life, but it seems to have worked out quite well. But it also fueled and nurtured probably a lot of other things in you today. Like, I know you're in sales. You obviously have this very performance comedic page. You're very well spoken. I have very high performing clients that take improv classes just to force them to kind of be good on their toes and to be good with speaking on their, without preparing, and just for getting comfortable in those awkward situations so that you can kind of just show up in life, not worrying about being embarrassed or what people are thinking, and just do what you need to do without being consumed. And I think there's probably a lot of takeaways that you got from that maybe you weren't expecting.
Absolutely. I mean, sales is something that you have to kind of be a chameleon and be able to adapt to conversations and think on your feet. Improv was actually one of my least favorite, because I preferred the stand-up, where they're literally, stand-up and improv are the exact opposite, right? Stand-up is trying to make it's written stuff that you're trying to make seem like it's coming off the top of your head, and improv is stuff off the top of your head that you're trying to make it seem like it's scripted. So they're two complete opposites. And I was never good at improv. Someone would suggest something, and I'd be like, no, it's actually this, and just ruin the whole scene.
You're the guy who always ruined the sketch and went left.
I don't think I ever made a single sketch better. I mean, I was in an actual sketch group in school with some great friends of mine, where we did shows at bars and theaters and that type of stuff, where it was like SNL type stuff written out. But improv was never my thing. I was terrible at it. I'm not bad at thinking on my feet. I just couldn't put myself in those situations, and I'd never liked it as much as doing stand up.
That's so interesting. So all these things have obviously served you. You've found a way to channel this skill set and this passion of yours into what you're doing. Obviously, you've gotten tens of millions of views. You've built out this amazing account. I find your account very, very funny, we've said, but also really relatable. Like, as a parent, as I'm watching your stuff, like, I don't think you've posted anything where I'm like, I don't understand what he's talking about. You've done a really good job of just representing the life of a parent. And actually, I want to talk about your podcast, but when I look at some of the episode names of your podcast, and I'm going to, like, toddlers versus winter jackets, like, who can't picture what that looks like? You and I were just talking about this, this spring weather that we're having, where we continue to get snow. And I just said, like, I don't even have any left mittens left for my kids, like just a bunch of right hands, no left hands. Couldn't tell you where all the left ones are, but I need spring to get here so I don't have to put two left-handed gloves on my kids anymore. I also love can't poop alone. Like, I feel like, my children are grown and I still have this problem. Mediocre parenting advice. These are great, great episode titles, and you bring a lot of this to life. Talk to me a little bit about, is your content fed by feedback from people? I know a lot of it's lived experience, I'm sure, but are you getting people saying, can you do more of this stuff? Or this stuff really resonates with me? What kind of feedback do you get from your followers?
Well, you can I do get DMs and comments all the time. People asking for a part 2 on a certain video type.
Sure.
But I can tell, honestly, within the first 24 hours of posting a video, whether or not it's going to have legs and, become a part 2, part 3 type of video, just based on the reaction and the views, the likes, the shares, and all that stuff. I can tell what resonates with people and what doesn't. And even the stuff that, doesn't necessarily go viral, if you will,
right.
that I'll see comments and stuff where I go, okay, this definitely resonated. And it's worldwide. It's in a weird way, it's comforting to know that your toddlers can be a-holes no matter where you live in the world, right? I get
nobody is exempt or immune.
Exactly. Like, when I've gotten messages from people in Singapore, India, Australia, the UK. I mean, everywhere, all over the world, people being like, I guess someone messaged me from Estonia the other day. I couldn't probably point that out on a
Wow.
map if you had a gun to my head,
We'll
but
do that later. That'll
it
be a test.
it
Yeah.
was and it's just like it's worldwide. It's not even just relatable in my area or the US or North America. It's the entire
Mm.
planet where people can relate to your kids doing this type of thing or reacting a certain way. And when the reason I started doing this was because when I became a parent, your feed, your algorithm sort of
Yeah.
starts to mimic what because your phones are listening or whatever, the
Of course.
spyware. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
not I don't know too much about that, but your algorithm starts to become like parenting stuff when you start sharing parenting videos or liking parenting videos. I saw so many videos about like, here's what I do in the 2 hours before my baby wakes up. And I was like, huh? What are you talking
You have
about?
2 hours?
2 hours. My kids wake up screaming my name or screaming daddy and I'm wake up in a panic like my house is being robbed. Like, what are you talking about? So I saw so much unrelatable parenting
Right.
content that I know there's a lot of that out there. And I mean, you can tell sometimes I like read the comments on those videos just to make myself
Good
mad.
laugh.
People just like being like, what are you talking about? People get so mad at those people. But I was like, I want to post relatable stuff, relatable
Yeah.
dad stuff that moms can relate to, stuff that, I have a lot of grandparents that follow me, that, DM me all the time, who are like, oh, my grandkids are like this, or my kids are grown now, but they did this when they were
Oh, that's
young.
amazing.
So it's pretty cool to be able to talk to people and get feedback on everything I do.
Yeah, there's such a sense of comfort, I think, to your point, knowing that other people are going through this. Because I do think, to your point, when you are a parent, you're looking online, you're seeing how other people are doing things and all of the, you know, handmade things they're making or home cooked meals and the this and the no sugar drink. Like you're just like, oh my gosh, like it creates a certain sense of pressure. And great for people who can do that, and great if that works for you and you feel comfortable doing that. But I think there's a whole other group of us that maybe feel like we're treading water as we're raising our kids and we're not sure and we're trying to do the best we can to a certain degree without knowing. And it's nice to have these videos. I mean, I'm just a few weeks ago, just in preparation for this, just started like scanning through your video. I think I was like 25, 30 minutes later going, this is hysterical, because literally it's almost a little bit of a tool for people to know what to expect. So maybe you have a newborn, and if I'm watching your toddler videos, I'm like, okay, this is what I'm in for. This is normal. There's nothing wrong with my child. There's nothing wrong with me, which is the other piece of it, right? Forget, is my child's behavior normal? Is it normal for me to feel the way I feel? And I think your videos have created a lot of relatability, a lot of calm and comfort, and creating a community of people who kind of see themselves in what you're doing in a very kind of digestible way through comedy. So it's genius, really.
Yeah, thank you. And I see the comments all the time of, oh, my daughter's the same age, and but I've had these people who have followed me for years now, who
Yes.
have their first child is the same age as my son. He's just over 3, and then they had a second who's a similar age, and it feels like our kids are growing up together in a
Yes.
weird way. And in a weird way, some of the times the content I post is like therapy for me. Like, I know it
Yeah.
helps other people. I see the comments, I see the DMs, but sometimes it's a weird therapy thing for me where, and I've talked to my wife about this, of like, one that keeps coming up is like brushing your toddler's teeth, how it's such a pain in the ass. So I'll
It
post
doesn't go away, I don't think. Like I still get frustrated over my kids' teeth brushing.
I'll post it, and I'll post a video about brushing your toddler's teeth, and people will actually give suggestions. And in a weird way, it's
Mm,
like I'm helping people because they can relate to it, but I'm also getting help from people
right.
being like, try this, there's electric toothbrush, or try pinning them down, or try waterboarding them, or whatever, like CIA techniques. I'm like, all right, let's not get that, let's calm down a
Like
little
I'll
bit.
only
But
try it once, but we'll see.
yeah,
Yeah.
go in the
That's a good
garage and
point.
shine a spotlight on them like they're being interrogated. I'm like, that doesn't seem, but and then all these behaviors as well, where it's like, as my kid, people are like, oh, thank God I'm not the odd one out, or, and I asked myself, I said this when I was on Ariana's podcast, like, if whenever I have to do something, right, sometimes, it's do what you got to do parenting, or it's, path of least resistance parenting.
Hmm.
Obviously you need to have those boundaries. It's important. But sometimes if it's like getting through a car ride, or getting
Yep.
through a night where
Choose your
you're
battles.
sick, you
Yep.
can't, it's a pick your battles
Yeah.
thing. Right. And it's like, I asked myself, would what I'm doing ever show up in a Netflix serial killer documentary? Or have I ever seen that? Meaning, like, okay, I'm not feeling well. My son wakes up in the middle of the night. He's 3. I pull him into our bed. Would that ever be
Right.
in a serial killer documentary where they're like, that's where we knew It was when he
Right.
asked,
Or
no,
like
that would never
this
happen.
crazy person was not breastfed, so that probably is what led them
Yeah. Oh,
to, being a serial killer. You're right. These are not things that are going to come up, and
yeah.
they go by so fast. My son was kind of appearing in our bed in the middle of the night there for a while. He was probably 7 when he was doing this, and my husband would be like, it's kind of annoying, right? Like we get an elbow to the net back and feet in the face, and I said, yeah, we were kind of irritated. Do we change it? And then eventually it just stopped. And I'll tell you, I don't remember what that last day looked like. I don't remember that last time he slept with us, but the chances of my kid wanting to come and sleep with us again, like that's just going to decrease as he gets older. He's not going to want to do that thing. And we get so caught up in the firsts, like the first step and the first words, that sometimes we forget the lasts, right?
Yeah.
And we fuss over like, oh my God, diapers are such a pain. Like, do you remember the last diaper you changed? Or to your point, like, oh, they slept in my bed, or they came in the middle of the night, or they cried through the night to fall asleep. Well, do you remember the last time they did that? Because these things are temporary, right? It's like temporary, and it's kind of reminding yourself of that in the moment. It doesn't make you feel better in the moment. It doesn't make you feel better in the moment when your kid's screaming at the top of their lungs when they're supposed to be sleeping. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a weird thing where it's kind of doing what you need to do in the moment
Yeah.
to help you and them.
Yeah, like I've never seen a serial killer documentary where they're like, yeah, he needed to be rocked to sleep sometimes, and he had some formula as a kid. That's never
Yeah.
been the case. If my son wants to go, take a barbecue lighter to animals outside, then maybe we have a problem and we need to address this
Fair.
behavior. But if
Yes.
he just needs comfort in the middle of the night because he's not feeling well, or he's scared, or he had a bad dream, like, come on in,
Yeah.
dude. Try not to elbow me in the head and try not to kick your mom in the chest.
Yes, it's true. We do get caught up in those things. But again, it's nice when you can go onto social media and see that other people have bounced back from this. Other people have survived these moments too. And I love the community that you've created of just people being able to share feedback, get ideas, find themselves and see themselves in the situation, but also take away some valuable insights in terms of, well, that's a good idea, and the fact that it's serving you and your family is really wonderful too. Speaking of serving, I want to talk about your new project. You have developed this video series called Understanding the Postpartum Experience for Dads. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that? Because I just think it's amazing what you're doing.
So thank you. So, this is actually a project that I've put the most amount of time and effort into out of anything I've ever done in the last 5 years, partly because of how important I think it is. My wife dealt with postpartum with our first, but she didn't even know, right? I listened to the audiobooks. I don't have the attention span to read anymore, so I listen on my commute to work. But I listened to, the audiobooks of, becoming a dad, here's what to expect, all this stuff. And not a single one of them mentioned anything about postpartum. There's the basic stuff of like help around the house and that stuff, but never the word postpartum.
Mm.
And my wife didn't know anything about it either. And all of a sudden she's, feeling these certain ways and reacting these certain ways, and I'm confused and she's confused. And then we found out like she didn't end up really getting, if you want to call it a diagnosis, or she actually went on medication like 18 months after my son was born. So it
Wow.
was like a long time of not really knowing what's going on, dealing with these challenges. I mean, for her, it was, obviously there's a huge spectrum of postpartum experiences, or postpartum
Yep.
depression, anxiety, that type of thing. And there's 1,000 ways that can be experienced, thankfully it wasn't too horrific with my wife. It was, things where she would like, instead of taking a nap when the baby, she'd be, mopping the floors and bawling her eyes out because she was so tired.
Right.
And she thought that if she stopped cleaning the house for a second, that she was a bad mom. That's kind of how it exhibited itself with her. I have, people close to me who, it was a lot worse than that. And then again, like I said, there's this huge spectrum, but I knew nothing about it, and she knew nothing about it.
Right.
And then, with, she went on the medication, and then things got significantly better. And then with our second, our daughter's just over a year now, it was a much better experience. And not only because it was the second, it was, a combination of the medication, and we kind of knew what to look for. And then I just thought like, wait a second, I've never seen any dad talk about postpartum. I remember my wife and I watch, crime shows and things like that all the time. And I remember the first time, and this is an episode that was less than 2 years old, of 911, with it's about the firefighter and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the response team in LA. and one of the characters goes through postpartum. And that was literally, I think, the first time I'd ever
Mm.
heard the word postpartum in TV or media. It might be a little bit different because I don't, watch the same shows. Maybe in the housewife shows, there's certain,
Sure.
maybe mom or female oriented shows where it might come up more, but that's the first time I had ever even heard the word
Hmm.
postpartum on TV or in a movie. So I did a poll on my Instagram. I'm going to say this is September or October of last year. And I just said, moms, what's one thing that you wish your husband or partner knew about the postpartum experience? And I think, I don't actually even know how many, I think it got almost 5,000 responses from people.
Wow.
And I went, whoa, this is massive. I mean, I did a screen grab video of me scrolling through the responses so fast that you couldn't read them. And the video of that was 4.5 minutes long, just to tell you how many responses it was. I mean, it was
Wow.
insane. So it took me, and I said, okay, this has got to be something now. This got enough traction that it's, I have to do something with this information. So I sifted through thousands of responses, came up with a list of, 20 of the most common, I don't want to say symptoms, but 20 of the most common things that moms had dealt with in their postpartum experience, narrowed that down to 10, narrowed that down to 6, narrowed it down to 4 of the most common. And obviously, again, there's so many that I still could do, but I wanted it to be sort of concise. So I picked 4 of the most popular ones that I had seen. And then I just started putting this together. I started doing research on them. And then I didn't want it to come across as, because 85% of my followers are women. So, it was designed for dads. Maybe the moms watch it and share it was sort of the main goal, given just the percentages of who follows me, but it needed to be done right. This isn't something where I can screw up or have any sort of, there's no margin for error on this as far as I'm concerned. Because the funny, silly dad who pretends to be his toddler. I wanted it to be funny and entertaining, but I also wanted it to be informative and kind of serious, right? And like I said, there was no margin for error in my mind when putting this series together. So I did the research. I looped in a bunch of my, mom creator friends, Ariana being
Yeah.
one of them.
Yes.
I sent scripts back and forth. I had edits. I had, and then I thought of the idea of having each of them be sort of the co-star of one of the episodes and give their personal definition of what that issue was and what they experienced. Postpartum rage, overstimulation. What are the other 2?
Mental load,
Mental
isolation.
load, and then the isolation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had, 4 fantastic friends of mine who are mom creators who were more than willing to help and help me out with the project. And I could not have done it without them, because I didn't want it to come across like I was, mansplaining or whatever, what you're going through. And I made, there was Anna Lee, who was kind of the quarterback of the entire project, helped me with multiple scripts, and she did her part of postpartum rage in the first one.
Mhm.
She gave me notes of like, make sure you let everybody know that you're not telling them what they're going through. You're sort of
Right.
explaining what you're learning, and this is for dads and that type of thing. But I mean, if you read the comments on some of those videos,
Mm-hmm.
it's unbelievable the response it's gotten. I mean, they were, I think the shortest one was 5 minutes and the longest one was 7. And they still have, tens of thousands of views and thousands of likes and hundreds of shares, which for that type of content, I mean, I was nervous to post the first one. I did not know how it was going to be. I've never really been nervous to post a video before.
Right.
It was 6 months in the making of putting this together, writing the scripts, editing, doing the research, making sure that it was, funny and had a lot of jokes. Like I bet you, each video has probably 15 to 20 jokes in it, but it had to be aimed at the right part of it,
Right.
right? I didn't want
Right.
the mother or the experience to be the target of the joke. The joke had to be around, either the dad or what's going on or that type of thing. So, I was nervous to post it, but you see it resonated with moms
Yes. Yes.
more than I expected. I was expecting that it would get a decent response, and then the dads would sort of get it sent to them. But I mean, the moms, so if you look at the comments, I can't believe how validated I feel. Why am I'm crying and laughing watching this? I've never
Mm.
heard someone put my experience into words, let alone a dad or a man, right? So that was incredible. I had therapists and social workers commenting, being
Wow.
like, I've never heard it explained this well, which was, it gives me shivers right now thinking about it, because I put so much work and so much effort into it. And the fact that it was received that way it was a dream come true for that type of project.
It's just amazing. And I have to say that I've watched the videos. They're incredible. You really balance the comedy and the information and the impact, and you really try to package it in a way that people will hear it. And it's so well done. And to your point, I mean, there's just postpartum is like one of those topics that there's not a lot of information about it, or I should say, there's not enough. And certainly not mainstream information that people would maybe absorb through the content that they're consuming on a regular basis to certainly have an awareness of it or to be prepared for it. So, you're having a baby or you just had a baby, you're not seeing anything anywhere that connects or resonates or might help you identify with how you're feeling. There's also a taboo, right? A lot of women struggle. It's like, well, I have this beautiful baby and it's healthy and I should be so grateful. And again, there's always this kind of unclear line between, yes, you just had a baby, you're going to be a little bit tired, things are different, you're adjusting to life. And then there's like the real struggles and traumas of postpartum that often just get overlooked because women are trying to plow through. And to your point, a lot of dads not knowing what to do because they're completely unfamiliar with it, and it's probably not formally diagnosed. I mean, it's one thing to have the postpartum diagnosed, and then we can be all hands on deck and we can figure out the solutions. But if you're flailing or just kind of coping and nothing's been identified or talked about yet, it's a really tough place for everyone to be. And I love how you brought it all together, and I love this content's relevant for everybody because we all have people in our lives, be it, leaders, if we have people on our teams or in our community who are having babies or have gone through this. And to your point, postpartum can stick around for a very long time after having a baby. It shows up differently. And it's always nice just to have eyes on these people we care about. A lot of times I tell leaders who have people coming back to work after Matt leaves, you need to be super mindful of these individuals. I mean, everyone gets so worked up over special treatment, and I'm not asking for fairness. I'm asking for some equity, right? To be mindful of what these women are maybe going through, even dads, what kind of load are they dealing with? And just to be able to keep an eye on people. But I especially love that you were willing to take the risk to maybe do a little pivot on your platform and get a little more serious and leverage the community that you built to say, hey, yes, I can be funny. Yes, we can have fun here, but there's also some stuff that maybe we should know if we're really going to support this community. So is there like a comment or a feedback or something that really stands out to you in this process that you got?
Well, it was the one from someone who is, I can't remember if it was a social worker or a therapist or a doula or someone who works directly in that field, who was like, I've never heard it explained this well. And I was like, this is someone who's trained in it. Right.
Yeah.
So like, imagine what, a mom going through it, who's like, seeing it and going, oh crap, that's what I'm going through. Like, that's how impactful it is. Someone who's trained in it, deals with it every day, and is an expert on it is giving me a compliment like that. That was the one that I wish I saved it or took a screenshot so I could give this person some credit. But that was the one where I was like, oh my God, this is okay. And I think that was on the first video as well. So that was like, okay, this is actually meaningful. This could be something. This is doing exactly what I want it to do.
That's amazing. And to your point, I loved how you involved some mom creators and some influencers. Again, Ariana, who we've shouted out multiple times, because I think maybe sometimes these people get perceived as having these perfect lives because they can't, even if they depict the tougher moments in their lives on social media, nobody can have a full view into these women's lives. And seemingly you might think they have these perfect lives and everything's fine and everything's great. And, it's basically saying that, no, nobody is immune from this, and they're sharing their stories. And you just did a really good job of teeing that up and creating opportunities to talk about tough things. And I love when we create space on social to have these tougher conversations and build communities for people to talk about things that are not easy to talk about. And I love the idea of building humor into it. There's something I love about humor in a keynote, in any type of delivery of information or communication. There's just something about humor that somehow relaxes people and opens people up to really receive your message. It's kind of magical.
Yeah, that was the whole goal, right? I mean, if I could have talked for 6.5 minutes with no jokes, but that's not really my style, and that's not really I don't think it would have resonated as much. It may have, but again, that's not
Yeah.
really my style. I kind of wanted to combine it. And I also challenged myself, right? It was a personal challenge of like, can I do this? Can I make 20 or 30 jokes in a video about maybe the worst thing someone's ever been through? Like,
Right.
can I make a video about that funny but also informative? And I think I pulled it off. I'm really proud of the project. And I don't think, honestly, I get negative comments all the time. I don't think I've seen a single one that was like, sort of trashing it or saying,
Yeah.
this was distasteful or whatever. Because, and again, that's part of the reason why I had, my mom creator friends involved, was to give it a little bit of a personal touch,
Yep.
and give it a little, extra oomph of just like, hey, this is someone. And I shouted them all out in the captions, and they helped
Yes.
me write every single one of them. I sent the scripts
It's amazing.
before to make sure that, there was nothing that I was being accurate, that there was nothing. And then some of the edits, I was like, oh God, thank God. Actually, like if you see
Good catch. Yeah.
some of the things where I was like, I didn't even think of that. But again, that's why I
Yes.
had the moms involved, because I
It's
wanted it to
amazing.
be as perfect as possible.
Do you think you'll be tackling, because you said you tackled four major topics. Do you think you'll go back to some of the ones that you put a pin in and do more?
Probably, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of other mom creator friends of mine that I didn't get to involve in this project, who talk about this stuff on a regular or semi-regular basis. And I picked basically the four people that were the closest to me in this sort of creator
Yeah.
world, but there's a ton others out there that I would love to include in moving forward. Like I said, I mean, initially I have a list somewhere on my phone or iPad that it was probably 20 or 25 topics of what moms said. And I think this does have legs to potentially grow and do more episodes with more topics, because of how well it resonated, and who knows where it could go. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited to see.
Yeah. I mean, what an amazing thing for you. I mean, would you love to do more of this on like a bigger kind of full-time career thing, like expand your comedy and or is it just a fun, because not everyone wants their passion projects and side hustles and the fun things they do on the side to be their full-time gig, but could you see yourself doing comedy full-time? Could you see yourself
I
on
th-
stages
I
doing
think
that
so.
type of
Yeah.
stuff?
I mean,
Yeah.
especially with this whole postpartum thing. I mean, that's sort of the first thing where I go, this could actually be something that that happens on a stage or as a keynote or at baby shows, or maybe it starts as at a place like the Womb, which I know
Yeah.
is a fantastic place. I did a fundraiser for them actually over
Yeah. Yeah.
Christmas as well. But where it's maybe I'm teaching dads about the postpartum experience. But it kind of, what happened with this project made me realize that moms don't even know, right? So it's not
Right.
even just like it was for dads, it was in the title, but I think moms got just
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
much out of it as the dads did, which is
Well, yeah, I
again,
mean, you have a baby and you leave a hospital with this thing, and there's no manual that comes with it, and you're kind of learning on the fly, which I think is what makes it hard for women sometimes to tell their husbands what they need, or because they're just learning day by day, right? And it's nice for to your point to, yes, you create a lot of content for women, but I'm sure the husbands are absorbing it and taking it in, even if it's just over their shoulder or if it's been passed
yeah,
on to be like,
sent
oh,
to
that,
them.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's amazing. I'm curious though, in your journey with this experience, does any type of parenting advice stand out for you as being some of the best advice that you received, and any stand out as being like the worst advice you ever received?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, best parenting advice is a couple different things. It's so easy, I think, now to be focused on your phones and stuff, and you don't
Mm,
even think about it. I see people on their phones drive, like while driving, all the time now,
yeah.
and I'm like, I think it's just become so second nature that
Mhm.
when you're around your kids, to just quickly scroll, or, oh, I got to check an email, oh, the Ring doorbell went off, who's outside. um but just having time to put that away, because it might not seem like a big deal to you, or you're just quickly scrolling an email or whatever, but your kid sees that as, well, the phone's more important than I am,
Yeah.
right? That's how they perceive it. They perceive this little object as the thing that you're focusing on, instead of them, instead of playing with them or whatever. So that, trying to put the phones down, take the Apple Watch off. I try to do that as much as possible when I get home, from work. And it's tough some days, if I'm on an early day and the team is still working, I might need to be contacted for something, and I may have to make an exception, but I try really hard to put my phone away until the kids are asleep. Because it's and the other thing too about being a creator is so hard is like there's all these moments you want to capture, right? Like, I don't even know how people do, like film vlogs and stuff. I'm just like, I am so jealous in a way of the fact that, you can kind of film all these cool moments within your day. Like, sometimes on a Sunday, I'm so stressed, I forget about my phone initially. And then I'm like, sometimes I'm actually like, I'm going to do like a vlog, like a Sunday vlog, put humor into it, make it. And then by 9:30, I've been up for 3 hours with the kids and I've completely forgotten my phone. Like,
maybe that's a good thing.
It could be a good thing. It's not great if I'm trying to create a vlog when I have zero footage, but my vlogs, if I did a vlog based on past videos, I'd have 17 seconds of footage and be like, I forgot to film the rest of my
forgot to do my job.
I didn't do it. But
it's funny though, you talk about like taking off your watch and putting stuff away. I think even, I'm an executive coach. I work with high performers, and even if they don't have young kids at home, that I tell them all the time, like, just put the phone down. If there's an emergency, people will find you. And even those 2 seconds, we always go to our phone to like look at the weather, for example. And the next thing you know, I'm like in a rabbit hole doing something else. And so it's always like just understanding that the draw of that phone will draw you in and you'll eventually get distracted. The emails, the emergencies, the excuses we make for the reasons why we need to have the phone on or the phone closed or the watch on. Again, if something's happening somewhere, people will pick up the phone and call you. They're not going to send you an email, probably. And the other point is your kids are still young, but I'll tell you, it's really hard to get your kids off their devices when you're on yours, right? When you're like, you're not supposed to be on the device. I told you it's not good for you. And they're like, but you're on your device. And you're like, this is a strong point. And then you're in that whole, well, do as I say, not as I do. And then that's just a whole other thing. What about some bad parenting advice? Like, what is some of the... Or just maybe something that didn't work for you guys?
Well, bad parenting advice is mostly just things you hear from like older generations, I feel like, where they're like, do this. And you're like, that's insane and probably illegal. What are you talking about? I used to do a video series early when my son was first born. So this is probably going back 2.5 years of like, things that, the boomers or grandparents say and that type of thing. And it was just, that got a lot of traction, but it also upset a lot of people. But, it was just, the whole like whiskey on the pacifier or the rice, the rice cereal or what do you mean you have to wait to give them water or, breast is best or all this stuff. And it's like, I'm a big believer. My wife and I are sort of, go with the flow, pick your battles type of thing, right? There's certain moments for, for putting your foot down and educating and trying to teach. Cause in a way, parenting is the ultimate leadership. I mean, you're literally building a human being from the ground up, right? They, in a way they don't start with any bad habits, but they also know nothing. I mean, when I don't know anyone who's a CEO or an executive or a manager who has to teach their employee how to walk,
right?
Or like, you're trying to make,
how to use a spoon.
Please eat your yogurt. Come on, we need you to gain a little bit of weight because you're not on the curb, So it's, in a way, it's the ultimate type of leadership. It takes the most patience I've ever seen in my life. And sometimes you feel that, like, I don't want to say if it's anger or anything, that it creeps in where you're just like, I'm going to lose my shit soon. And it's like, you have to learn to be patient. I'm not a terribly patient person. I remember when my son was really young, we had that, I'm sure most parents have it. It's like a little bin with an orange handle and a yellow lid. And then it has different shapes. Right? It has like a triangle, a star, a square, a circle, and they put the shapes in the, it's supposed to fit them in the hole, and then it goes in and And I remember my son was trying to put them in and it wasn't working. And he just smashed his fists on the ground, ripped the lid off, and then put all the things in the bucket. And I was like, oh, that's my impatience, but that's also not dumb. That's pretty smart. The end goal is to get the things in there,
them in the bucket.
And he found a faster way to do it because he was frustrated. So I saw like a weird part of my intelligence and a weird part of my impatience in the same moment. And I was just like, oh my God.
I'm succeeding. Well, parenting, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it is a leadership role. You're guiding, you're shaping, you're, creating a path to success. But the craziest part is that you don't really even know if you've done a good job until like 25 years later. You don't even actually know. And even you're doubting yourself and there's no report card. No one's coming in saying you're doing a great job. I mean, sure, there's like little signs along the way and little wins as they hit milestones and as they, there's always little validations, but it's the craziest job where you don't really find out if you've done not the right thing. What is the right thing? You don't even know if it all worked out until they're like 25, maybe older, depending.
Which is crazy. Like you want to sit them down every year and be like, all right, here's what our goals were for the year. But that's the whole thing. I've made fun of, the milestone thing as well, because that's something that people get so caught up in.
Yes,
and what makes
it can be
parents
heartbreaking
miserable.
for people.
You're like,
sure,
wait, why isn't you see someone, they're like, oh, it's 18 months. Is your baby playing the cello yet? And you're like, what is going on? This seems insane. Have they applied to NASA? You're like, at 3? But that's one thing that stresses people out as parents so much too, is these milestones that you're supposed to hit. And it's like, eventually they'll, like my daughter is 13 months now. She's close to walking, but it has been close for a couple of months. My son was walking at 10 and a half months.
Yeah.
Right. She has 2 teeth with maybe 3 more coming in. My son had like 5 or 6 teeth at this age. So and you also
that's the crazy thing about having kids too, is like, I made you the same way. You came out the same way. How could the two of you be so different? That is not something people talk about enough. I mean, I think it's an obvious statement to think as they grow up, they're different. But those things that you think are like basic things where they're going to probably walk at the same time ish, they're going to get the same amount of teeth ish. You basically, they're totally different little animals.
Yeah, and
totally
animals
different.
is the right word to use. Sometimes I say emotional terrorists, which is not necessarily the nicest thing to say, but I think it's pretty accurate. But yeah,
I think everybody can relate.
Yeah, my daughter and son are so different too. But I mean, like you're talking about these little wins that you have, right? Where my son will be like, "Oh, I love you, baby girl," and he gives her a kiss on the cheek, and so, moments like that where you're like, it melts you, and you're like, "Wait a second, maybe you through all the bad days, the late night wake ups, the throwing up because he's got a stomach flu. You're like, he learned that somewhere here, and maybe that means, and that's my wife and I try to, if we're getting frustrated, whether it's with them or each other, we try to have these sweet moments together because they are watching. Like sometimes if I'm going off to work, I'll come in and give my wife a hug, give her a kiss on the cheek, and because maybe she had a rough night or whatever, and then I'll look over and my daughter's just like with like egg falling out of her mouth, just staring at us. And I'm like, it's going to turn into something good. She's staring right now because maybe she's
absorbing,
jealous, but she's absorbing, right? And they're like sham wows. They're like sham wows that you try not to screw up on an irreversible level.
It's so true. And I love that you mentioned leadership. I'm going to ask you, I mean, this is a leadership podcast, and I do think you're leading an amazing community and leading some amazing conversations. You're leading your little family with your wife. What is a leader in your opinion? Like, what does being a good leader mean?
There's a couple of things. I wrote down a couple of notes. We actually kind of touched on one. Lead by example is a huge one, right? As a parent, again, if you're on your phone and you're telling your kid to get off the iPad, that doesn't. There's not a lot of weight to that statement, right? Or like I'm being sweet with my wife or with the baby, and my son sees it, and now he's being really affectionate with them, right? I'm passing along these good things, and that translates into any business. If the manager or the leader is not willing to do something themselves, then why should the employees do it? And obviously there's certain situations where maybe the CEO or the CFO of the business can't be out cleaning cars off in the winter, but a manager can. And it's something where you need to be willing to do those things yourself. I worked for Air Canada Center for MLSE for a little bit in college, which was a super fun gig.
Yeah.
Working at Leaf games and Raptors games and TFC games and whatnot. And, there was good managers and not so good managers. And the ones who were good, who you liked, were the ones who were in there getting their hands dirty with you. They were, helping you pour a beer for someone if you had someone ordering a bunch, or they were grabbing a hot dog from the back if you were out, and that type of thing. So, lead by example is a great one. And I wrote down another one. What is this going to sound? This one's kind of cheesy, but the whole respect is earned, not given thing, just because you have a title as a manager or director or CEO or whatever your title might be, it doesn't inherently come with the respect from the people you work with. You know, the team of people I work with, I probably 70% of them are like 50 years old plus. Some of them are 70 plus, 80 plus.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I've been a manager for 5-6 years now. So I came in my mid 20s as a manager, and I got these people who've been in the business for longer than I've been alive. Right. That takes a lot of time and a lot of right decisions to get those people to earn your respect. So that's one thing. You know, you see people make that mistake all the time just because they get a title that they think that, you know, get on their high horse, they get hungry with power, they get corrupted by power or whatever. So that's another one. And those are kind of cheesy ones, but those are
But it's so true. I had someone say to me once, you know, all this leadership advice that I get from your podcast, Marissa, it's very applicable to everybody in every situation. I mean, earning people's respect, showing up, getting your hands dirty, helping, you know, your fellow neighbor. I mean, leadership comes in so many shapes and forms. It's certainly not the result of a title, although that's one way to get leadership. But there are leaders in our everyday lives. We all have the capacity to be a leader. And these are all good nuggets that will serve all of us in showing up better to take care of each other. So I'm watching the clock. Of course, this flew by. And I'm going to encourage people to go check out Heated Seats on Instagram, check you out on TikTok. You will get lost down a rabbit hole of comedy. You'll have such a great time. Share it with people that you know that have young kids. Create some relatability. Give them some peace of mind that they're doing a great job and that their kids are normal-ish. But I want to ask you some rapid fire questions before you go. So we'll do this quick.
Okay.
And I'm sure you'll have great answers. But finish this sentence. Being a great dad means
showing up and taking an equal part.
I love that. Who's the funniest person you know?
Oof. Funniest person.
Or that you admire, maybe of a comedian or someone that you like.
There's so many. The late great Patrice O'Neill is someone who passed away a long time ago, who was a great comedian who I loved. But there's so many people now. There's, you know, it's not as simple as just, you know, there's like 10 comedians who are doing it now. There's people on Instagram there's people in my comment section that are funnier than me. So, you know, anyone but me. There's 1,000 people out there who are hilarious.
I love humor. It's such good medicine. If you could collaborate with any person or company or brand out there to do something, who or what would it be?
Oof. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to collaborate with some fantastic people and companies as well. You know, Frida Mom are fantastic. I've worked with them. I'd love to do more with them. You know, I'm hoping that this postpartum thing can get some traction and I can collaborate with some big creators, you know, Bird's Papaya, who is a close contact and friend of Ariana's and as well as someone who I'd love to work with at some point in the future. So, I mean, I've worked with a ton, but there's a bunch more out there who I'd love to spread this postpartum for dads project with.
It's amazing. I think you're doing great work. Okay, final question. What is the most dad thing about you?
Most dad thing about me? I can't keep a white piece of clothing clean to save my life. Like, I'm wearing this bone colored hat right now, and it's going back in a bag the second we stop this, because it's just, I know that there's going to be like a marinara sauce hand print on it
yogurt,
at some point. The brim of this is going to look like the Japanese flag if my kids get anywhere near it. So it's, you know, that is, I don't even wear a white shirt. I wear undershirts, and then I take, you know, if I take off a dress shirt when I get home from work and I have a white undershirt on, it looks like it was a canvas for like a Jackson Pollock painting. If I'm feeding my kids, they might not even be having marinara or some sort of pasta sauce.
But somehow they found marinara.
They found some. So, yeah, never.
I remember going into a meeting once wearing a black blazer, and someone goes, "You have something on your back," and I thought, "Oh, so I'll go to the bathroom, take my blazer off, whip it around," and it was like a full yogurt handprint of a small child. Like, not even like just the most perfect handprint you've ever seen, like the type you try to make when you're doing art with them, but you can never pull off. Yeah. This was like, I should have just cut it out of my blazer and put it in a frame. But Tyler, it's been so great having you here. Appreciate the comic relief. This is a reminder for all of us to use comedy in life wherever we can when we're trying to get important messages across. Leverage comedy, build community through it, try to find the the silver lining in everything we do. And I encourage people to go check out your content, and hope we get a chance to collaborate again in the near future.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. And yeah, everyone, please go check out the Postpartum for Dads series. I'm really proud of it. I put a lot of work into it. I've never cared about any content as much as this. So please share it, spread it around, and help good dads become better dads and help moms relate as well.
Amazing. For sure. We will do that. And there'll be tons of information in the show notes, how people can find you as well. So all the best, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. Cheers.